The message notification sound made my heart skip, but it was the photo attachment that stopped my breath entirely. There on my screen was a bank transfer confirmation with my name as the sender, transferring the entire $800,000 of my education fund. The recipient's name burned into my vision: Layla Morrison Luxury Homes. A home design brochure sat beside it, with my brother Ethan's signature scrawled across the bottom, and my sister-in-law Victoria's manicured hand visible in the corner of the frame. "Thought you should see what your college fund is building us," read the text from Victoria. "Not like you were ever going back to finish med school anyway. Time for real adults to use that money properly." My fingernails dug half-moons into my palms as I stood frozen in my kitchen, the morning sunlight suddenly feeling cold against my skin. The fund my grandparents had established before their deaths, my pathway to finishing medical school, supposedly gone with a few signatures and mouse clicks. "My name is Rachel. I'm 32 and a forensic accountant. This is the story of how I turned someone's arrogance into their own undoing." The buzzing of my phone jolted me from my shock. Victoria calling, no doubt, to hear my distress firsthand. "Did you get my message?" Her voice dripped with artificial sweetness when I answered. "I thought you'd want to see the beautiful property your fund is helping us acquire. 5 bedrooms, wine cellar, infinity pool. Much better use than paying for more classes, don't you think?" I carefully controlled my breathing before responding. "That's quite a purchase. When's the closing date?" Victoria's disappointed pause was audible. She'd clearly expected tears or rage. "Friday. The down payment's already processed from your account. Ethan had the access codes from when your grandparents first set it up." "I see," I said, keeping my voice deliberately neutral while opening my laptop. "Well, enjoy the house." "That's it? Enjoy the house?" Victoria's frustration broke through her composure. "God, you're boring. I thought you'd at least put up a fight." I ended the call without responding and pulled up my email. There it was, confirmation from my attorney, Renee, sent at 5:47 this morning. The attempted transfer from Victoria had been automatically rejected. The funds had been moved to a new secure account 2 weeks ago, precisely when Victoria had started asking suspiciously detailed questions about my dormant education fund at family dinners. My grandmother had taught me well. "Trust your instincts about people, but verify your accounts," she'd said repeatedly during the years I'd worked at her forensic accounting firm. When she passed away, she left me not just the education fund, but the knowledge to protect it. I dialed Renee's number, my hand steady despite the anger still burning beneath my measured exterior. "Morning, Rachel. I see you got the notification," Renee said, her voice professional and calm. "Everything has been documented. Timestamps, IP addresses, the attempted withdrawal, even the forged authorization with your brother's signature." The signature was forged? The confirmation sent a cold wave through me. I had suspected Victoria's manipulation, but not outright forgery. Unmistakably. The pressure patterns are inconsistent with your brother's other legal signatures. Do you want to proceed with pressing charges immediately? I thought about Ethan, my protective older brother who'd stood between me and our parents' explosive arguments throughout childhood. The same brother who'd fallen for Victoria's practiced charm after just 3 weeks of dating, rushing into marriage despite my carefully worded concerns. "Not yet," I replied, walking to my home office and unlocking the bottom drawer of my filing cabinet. "Let's wait for them to discover the transfer failed. I want to see Victoria's next move." Inside the drawer was a thick folder labeled Grandma's Protocols. I pulled out a letter written just weeks before she died 2 years ago. "My dearest Rachel," it read, "I'm leaving you this money because I believe in your dream. Medicine isn't just a career for you, it's your calling. Don't let anyone tell you it's too late or too hard, and most importantly, don't let anyone take this opportunity from you. You're smarter than they think. Remember what I taught you. Sometimes the best vantage point is the one they don't realize you have." I traced her signature, remembering how she'd taught me to analyze handwriting patterns when I was 12, the same knowledge that had helped me spot the inconsistencies in the documents Victoria had submitted to the bank. My phone vibrated with a text from Ethan. "Hey sis, Victoria's really excited about our new house. I know the money was for your school, but you've got a good job already. Family helps family, right? A familiar ache spread through my chest. Ethan had always been financially impulsive, jumping from one scheme to another. Victoria had clearly identified his vulnerability within days of meeting him. Another text arrived. The realtor needs the money by Friday. You're not mad, are you? I started typing a response, then deleted it. Sometimes silence was the most effective strategy. Let them discover their plan had failed without warning. My computer pinged with an email notification, the medical school admissions office confirming my interview for next week. I'd been quietly completing prerequisites at night while working full-time for the past 2 years. The money from my grandparents wasn't just sitting in an account. It was the final piece of a plan I'd been methodically building. I opened my blinds, watching the city skyline as the afternoon sun painted the buildings gold. Victoria thought she had won, that she'd crushed my dreams with a few forged signatures and a smug text message. She had no idea she'd just triggered a trap of her own making. My grandmother's words echoed in my mind. Sometimes the best revenge is letting people think they've beaten you, right up until the moment they realize they've beaten themselves. Friday was only 3 days away. I wondered what excuse Victoria would give the realtor when the money didn't appear. More importantly, I wondered how she would explain to Ethan why she had forged his signature to steal from his sister. I sent a text to Renee. Send me everything you've documented. I want to be ready when this falls apart. Then I returned to my medical school application, a small smile playing at my lips. Victoria thought she was destroying my dream. Instead, she was about to learn a valuable lesson about underestimating the quiet ones in the family. Friday morning arrived with a storm of text messages from Victoria. The bank says the transfer failed. What did you do? You think you're so clever, don't you? Ethan is devastated. How could you do this to your own brother? I sipped my coffee while reviewing the evidence Renee had sent over. Everything was meticulously documented. Victoria's multiple attempts to access the account, the forged signatures, recordings of her calls to the bank where she had tried to impersonate me, and, most damning of all, bank statements revealing systematic withdrawals to offshore accounts and online gambling sites. My phone rang. Ethan. Rachel, we need to talk. His voice was tight with anxiety. Victoria says there's some kind of problem with the transfer. There is, I replied calmly. Would you like to know what really happened? Or do you want to keep pretending your wife didn't just try to steal my education fund? Silence hung between us then. It wasn't stealing. I signed the papers. We're family. Did you actually sign them, Ethan? Or did Victoria forge your signature after showing you different documents? More silence. I could almost hear the pieces clicking into place in his mind. Come over, he said finally. Please. I need to understand what's going on. An hour later, I sat in their living room, my laptop open to display the evidence. Victoria paced behind the couch, her designer heels clicking against the hardwood floors she'd insisted they install last month. As you can see, I explained, pulling up the forged documents, these signatures don't match your usual handwriting, Ethan. The bank's fraud department spotted it immediately. You had no right to move that money, Victoria burst out. It was just sitting there while you play pretend about medical school. We needed it. Needed it? I raised an eyebrow. For what? A 5-bedroom house you can't afford? More designer clothes? Or was it to cover the gambling debts you've been hiding from Ethan? Her face went pale. Ethan turned to stare at her. What gambling debts? I pulled up another document, a credit report Renee had obtained during our investigation. Your wife has been busy, Ethan. 3 maxed-out credit cards, 2 personal loans, and regular withdrawals at Golden Palace Casino. I scrolled through the transactions. Did you wonder why she was so interested in accessing my college fund? Victoria's composure cracked. You had no right to look into my finances. Actually, I had every right. You tried to steal my money. Did you really think I wouldn't protect myself? That I wouldn't notice when you started asking questions about my account details? Ethan sat heavily on the couch, his face ashen. Victoria, is this true? The gambling? It's not what you think, she stammered. I had a system. I was going to win it all back. The house was going to fix everything. We could have remortgaged it when we needed to. I watched my brother's world crumble around him. Part of me wanted to comfort him, but he needed to see the truth for himself. "How much?" he asked quietly. Victoria's silence filled the room like smoke. "Over $200,000, I answered for her. At least that's what we've been able to trace. Ethan put his head in his hands. I could see his shoulders shaking. "Get out," he whispered. "Baby, please," Victoria started. "Get out," Ethan roared, standing up. "You tried to steal from my sister. You forged my signature. You've been gambling away our savings. Get out!" Victoria grabbed her purse, mascara running down her face. "Fine, but don't think this is over. I'll find a way to fix this." The door slammed behind her, and Ethan collapsed back onto the couch. "I'm so sorry, Rachel," he whispered. "I should have listened when you said something felt off about her. I wanted to believe someone could love me that much, that quickly." I moved to sit beside him, pulling an envelope from my bag. "Here," I said softly. "You'll need this." "What is it?" "Contact information for a good divorce lawyer Renee recommended, and proof that Victoria has been planning this from the beginning." Ethan looked through the papers, his face growing harder with each page. Text messages showing Victoria bragging to friends about marrying into a family with money. Bank statements showing transfers to offshore accounts. Casino receipts dating back to before their wedding. "She never loved me, did she?" he asked, his voice small. "No," I replied gently. "But that's not a reflection on you. She's a con artist, Ethan. She's done this before." His head snapped up. "What?" I pulled out the final document, a police report from 3 years ago. Another marriage, another theft, another devastated family. "She disappeared before they could press charges," I explained. "Changed her name and moved here. Started fresh with a new target." Ethan was quiet for a long time, processing everything. Finally, he looked at me. "The college fund? It's safe?" I nodded. "Grandma taught me well. The money was moved to a secure account weeks ago. Victoria's transfer attempts were blocked and documented. We have everything we need to press charges." "Do it," he said firmly. "Press charges. All of it. I'll testify. Provide whatever you need. She needs to be stopped." I hugged my brother, feeling him shake with suppressed sobs. "I'm sorry," he whispered again. "I'm supposed to protect you, not put you in danger." "Hey," I pulled back to look at him. "You protected me plenty when we were kids. Let me protect you this time." My phone buzzed with a text from Renee. The police were ready to move on our evidence. Victoria's previous victims had been contacted and were willing to testify. "What happens now?" Ethan asked. "Now," I replied, "we make sure Victoria can't do this to anyone else." I squeezed his hand. "And then I have a medical school interview to prepare for." For the first time that day, Ethan smiled. "You're really going to do it? Become a doctor? That's what the money was for, what Grandma wanted?" I nodded. "She'd be proud of you, you know, not just for catching Victoria, but for never giving up on your dream." I squeezed his hand. "She'd be proud of you, too, for being brave enough to face the truth." Outside, thunder rumbled as the sky darkened. Somewhere in the city, Victoria was probably trying to figure out her next move, unaware that her game was finally over. But here, in this moment, something broken was beginning to heal. 2 months later, I stood in front of my bathroom mirror, adjusting my white coat. My medical school interview had gone perfectly, just as my preparation with the secured funds had allowed. But today wasn't about my future as a doctor. Today was about justice. "Ready?" Ethan asked from the doorway. He looked better now, the shadows under his eyes finally fading. The divorce papers had been filed the day after Victoria's schemes came to light. "Ready," I confirmed, grabbing my bag. The courthouse was packed, but not just with us. 3 other families were there, Victoria's previous victims. She'd used different names each time. Victoria Nichols, Valerie Nelson, Vanessa Newman. But her strategy had always been the same. Marry quickly, locate assets, forge documents, drain accounts. "You don't have to do this," I told Ethan as we took our seats. "Renee can present the evidence without your testimony." He shook his head. "Number, I need to face her. We all do. Victoria was led in by officers, her designer clothes replaced by generic court attire. She'd been arrested at the airport 3 weeks ago, attempting to flee with a fake passport. The smug smile I remembered from her text message was gone, replaced by a look of desperate calculation. Her eyes widened when she saw the other families. This wasn't part of her plan. The proceedings moved quickly. Renee presented our evidence methodically. The forged signatures, the gambling debts, the pattern of fraud across multiple states. Each family stood to testify, sharing nearly identical stories of trust betrayed and lives nearly ruined. When it was Ethan's turn, his voice was steady. "She made me believe I'd found true love," he said. "Instead, I nearly helped her steal my sister's future. The money she tried to take wasn't just cash in an account. It was a grandmother's legacy, a dream of becoming a doctor, a future of helping others. Victoria doesn't just steal money, she steals hope." I squeezed his hand as he returned to his seat. Finally, it was my turn. "Unlike Victoria's other victims, I was fortunate," I began. "My grandmother taught me to protect myself, to trust my instincts, to document everything. The money she left me wasn't just for education. It was a lesson in standing up for what's right. Today isn't about revenge. It's about making sure Victoria can't destroy any more families." The judge's verdict was decisive. Guilty on all counts. 5 years in prison, restitution to all victims, no possibility of early release. "You think this changes anything?" Victoria spat as they led her away. "You're still just playing at being a doctor. You'll fail, and I'll be out before you finish your first year." I smiled, thinking of my grandmother's words about letting people think they've won. "Actually," I replied calmly, "I start medical school next month. Your attempt to steal my dream just motivated me to work harder. So thank you, Victoria. You taught me that sometimes the best revenge is succeeding, despite those who tried to stop you." Outside the courthouse, Ethan turned to me. "I found her ring," he said. "The engagement ring I spent 3 months' salary on. It's fake, just like everything else about her." "Sell it," I suggested. "Use the money to start fresh." He shook his head, pulling out the ring. "Number, I want you to have it. Sell it and add it to your school fund. Turn one more piece of her lies into something good." That evening, I sat in my office looking at my grandmother's photo. The acceptance letter from medical school lay on my desk, along with the latest statement from my secured education fund. My phone buzzed with a text from Ethan. "Thank you for never giving up on me, even when I couldn't see the truth." I smiled, thinking about how different things could have been if I hadn't listened to my grandmother's lessons about protecting myself. Victoria had thought she was taking advantage of a naive dreamer, too busy studying to notice her schemes. Instead, she'd encountered someone prepared, protected, and unwilling to let anyone steal her future. I picked up my white coat, running my fingers over the embroidered name, Rachel Mitchell, medical student. Sometimes the best victories aren't just about keeping what's yours. They're about showing others that it's never too late to stand up for yourself, to pursue your dreams, to trust your instincts. And as for Victoria, she had 5 years to think about the fact that the quiet one she'd underestimated was now on her way to becoming Dr. Mitchell, while she sat in a cell, her own dreams of easy money, finally, permanently out of reach. 4 months after the trial, I received the final notification from Ethan's lawyer. "The divorce is officially finalized," he texted me alongside a photo of the court-approved documents. "Completely free of her now. The judge even granted a full annulment given the evidence of her fraudulent intent from the beginning." Despite everything Victoria had put him through, I could sense the relief in his message. Closure at last after what had been the most turbulent year of our lives. The heirloom ornament shattered against the marble floor as my mother's hands instinctively reached for my niece's drawing instead. Tiny glass fragments caught the Christmas lights, sparkling like cruel confetti around my son's feet. That ornament, the one my 8-year-old Liam had spent 3 weekends restoring from my grandmother's collection, lay destroyed while everyone's attention immediately shifted to my sister's daughter. "Natalie, show Grandma what else you made at school," my sister Patricia urged, as if my son weren't standing there, watching his painstaking work dismissed like yesterday's newspaper. The holiday music playing through my parents' surround sound system suddenly felt like it was coming from underwater. I watched my son's small hands tremble as he knelt to gather the broken pieces, his face carefully composed in that way children manage when they're trying desperately not to cry in front of people who've hurt them. This wasn't new. This wasn't even surprising anymore. But something inside me, something that had been bending for 8 long years, finally, irrevocably snapped. My name is Sophie. I'm 31 and a bookstore assistant manager. This is the story of how I demolished a family facade to build an authentic life. For 8 years, I'd watched my family systematically diminish my son. The pattern had been established from the moment I announced my pregnancy at 23. Unplanned, unmarried, with a boyfriend who vanished at the first mention of diapers and responsibility. I became the family disappointment, the cautionary tale my parents referenced in hushed tones when talking to cousins about college choices. Meanwhile, Patricia had done everything correctly. Prestigious university, marriage to a financial advisor, 2 perfectly timed children, and a house in the right neighborhood. My younger brother Daniel followed my father into architecture. And there I was, the family failure. What had begun as disappointment in my life choices had twisted over time into something uglier, something that now targeted my innocent child. My mother's comments that always contained hidden barbs. Liam seems to be catching up in reading. That's wonderful. My father lecturing me about financial planning while showering my niece and nephew with experiences Liam could only watch from the sidelines. The constant, endless comparisons. I'd tried shielding Liam, manufacturing excuses for forgotten birthdays and unexplained exclusions. Grandpa had an important meeting, I'd explain when he didn't appear at Liam's school play. Grandma must have mixed up the dates when his science fair achievement went unacknowledged, all while watching my parents reschedule business trips and cancel appointments to attend my niece and nephew's every soccer game and dance recital. Just yesterday, I'd received a text from Patricia. Mom wants to know what Liam might want for Christmas. She's already finished shopping for the kids. It was December 23rd. The annual family Christmas gathering was today, and she was just now asking about Liam's gift. As I watched my son gathering broken glass, pieces of his heart, really, I felt something crystallize inside me. Years of acceptance hardened into something with edges. Mom, I said, my voice unexpectedly steady. Liam restored that ornament from grandmother's collection. Don't you have anything to say about breaking it? The room fell silent. My mother looked at me with genuine surprise, as if the coat rack had suddenly offered an opinion on politics. It was an accident, she said dismissively. Now, Natalie was telling me about her school project. No, I interrupted, rising from the antique chair I'd always perched on uncomfortably. Not this time. Liam, go get your coat, please. But Mom, he started, still holding pieces of glass. Now, sweetheart. Leave the glass. When he'd left the room, I turned to face my family. My heartbeat felt like thunder in my ears, but my voice remained unnervingly calm. For 8 years, I've watched you treat my son like he's invisible. I've made excuses for you, tried to protect him, hoped that eventually you'd recognize the brilliant, compassionate child he is. But you've never even tried. Sophie, you're being dramatic, my father said, finally looking up from his tablet. Am I? When was the last time you remembered his birthday without a reminder? When have you ever attended one of his school events? When have you shown him 1/10 of the attention you lavish on his cousins? Patricia scoffed, setting down her wine glass. Just because we don't treat him like he's made of glass. Made of glass? I laughed, a sound with no humor in it. Is that what you call basic decency? He's a child who has done nothing wrong except be born to me instead of one of you. My mother stood, color rising in her neck. We've always welcomed you both. Welcomed? You tolerate us. There's a difference. And I'm done subjecting my son to your conditional love. I carefully picked up the largest remaining piece of the broken ornament, a curved fragment with part of a painted cardinal still visible. He found this in grandmother's attic when you were clearing out her house. You told him it was trash, but he asked if he could keep it. He spent 3 weekends carefully gluing it back together because he remembered me saying how much I loved watching the Cardinals with grandmother when I was little. I held up the fragment, letting the light catch it. He's 8 years old, and he has more genuine compassion than anyone in this room. He deserves better than what you've given him. Daniel, who had been silent until now, cleared his throat. Soph, you're making everyone uncomfortable. Uncomfortable? I turned to him, feeling tears burn behind my eyes but refusing to let them fall. Where was this concern when Dad forgot to include Liam in the family vacation photos? Or when Mom conveniently ran out of space on the family Christmas card? Your silence has been as harmful as their actions. Liam returned with his coat, his eyes wide with confusion and something else. Relief, maybe, that someone was finally acknowledging what he'd felt for years. I took his hand. We're leaving, and we won't be back, I told my stunned family. Merry Christmas. The drive home was quiet. I could feel Liam watching me, processing what had happened. We had driven to my parents' house in the suburbs that morning, and now we were heading back to our apartment downtown, about 40 minutes in the holiday traffic. I'm sorry about the ornament, sweetheart, I finally said, my knuckles white against the steering wheel. It's okay, Mom, he replied softly. I can fix something else. For us. His simple resilience made my throat tighten. When we got home, I made hot chocolate with extra marshmallows, and we sat under blankets watching Christmas movies. But I could tell Liam was subdued, trying to understand the day's events. That night, after he'd gone to bed, I sat at our small kitchen table staring at my phone. The screen glowed with messages from my family, first indignant, then confused, then demanding. I ignored them all and instead opened my contacts to James, my supervisor at the bookstore where I'd worked for years. He'd been inviting us to his family's Christmas celebration for 3 years running, and I'd always declined, feeling obligated to subject myself and Liam to my biological family's subtle cruelty. No more. I was finished with obligation, done with hoping for change, done with watching my son's spirit crack a little more with each family gathering. My thumb hovered over James's name. This wasn't just about finding somewhere to spend Christmas. This was about actively choosing a different path, one where Liam would be valued, where kindness wasn't rationed like something scarce. I pressed call. Sophie? James answered, surprise evident in his voice. Everything okay? I was wondering if that invitation to your family Christmas is still open, I said, my voice catching slightly. There was a pause. Of course it is. We'd love to have you both. Is something wrong? The genuine concern in his voice, concern I'd never heard from my own family when it came to Liam, made my eyes sting with tears I wouldn't let fall. I'll explain tomorrow. What time should we come? After confirming the details and exchanging cell numbers to coordinate, I hung up feeling lighter than I had in years. The next morning, James arrived at our apartment at 9 a.m. to pick us up. He lived across the city near his parents, so he'd offered to drive us rather than having us navigate unfamiliar neighborhoods on Christmas Day. Christmas Day with James's family changed everything. His family treated Liam like they treated every other child there, with warmth, interest, and genuine affection. His mother praised Liam's manners and asked about his science projects. His father taught him chess moves. James's nieces and nephews included him in their games without hesitation or hierarchy. When it came time for presents, there was a small pile waiting for Liam. Books James had selected knowing Liam's interest in astronomy, a model rocket kit from his parents, hand-knitted mittens from his grandmother. The contrast to our experience with my family was stark enough to take my breath away. These people, who had no biological connection to us, showed more authentic love in one day than my family had in 8 years. Meanwhile, my phone continued vibrating with messages from my family. My mother's texts evolved from self-righteous to manipulative. I can't believe you would embarrass us like that to, your father's blood pressure is dangerously high because of your scene. Patricia alternated between angry accusations and fake tearful appeals. My father attempted to lure us back with financial incentives, offering to start a college fund for Liam, something he'd done for his other grandchildren years earlier. I didn't respond to any of them. This wasn't a temporary protest designed to extract an apology. This was a permanent separation from people who had proven repeatedly that they were incapable of loving my son the way he deserved. But I wasn't done. Walking away was just the beginning. In the days after Christmas, I returned to work with new determination. I submitted my application for the bookstore's management training program, something I'd hesitated to do before, having internalized my family's narrative that I wasn't capable of advancement. With James's encouragement, I was accepted, and by March, I was assistant manager with a substantial raise. When Liam's birthday arrived in April, I used some of my new income to plan a celebration at the local science museum, inviting his entire class, James and his family, and neighbors who had become friends. I sent formal invitations to my parents, sister, and brother, knowing exactly what would happen. As predicted, they didn't show. But this time, Liam didn't notice their absence. He was too busy being celebrated by people who genuinely cared about him, his eyes wide with wonder as the planetarium show displayed constellations across the dome above us, his laughter echoing through the exhibit halls. Back home that evening after the celebration, I selected specific photos from the party. Liam surrounded by friends, blowing out candles on his astronomy-themed cake, unwrapping thoughtfully chosen gifts, and created a beautiful digital album. I shared it publicly on social media, tagging my family members and writing, "Grateful for the people who choose to be part of Liam's life and celebrate the amazing person he is becoming. Some family is born, but the best family is chosen." I knew my mother's social circle would see it. I knew my father's business associates would see it. I knew Patricia's carefully curated image would be questioned, and I wanted them to feel every ounce of what they'd lost through their own choices. The fallout was immediate and fierce. My phone exploded with messages from extended family members who had only heard my parents' sanitized version of events. Cousins and aunts I barely spoke with were suddenly concerned, having seen my pointed social media post in their feeds. My mother called in tears, claiming I was deliberately trying to hurt them. My father threatened to remove me from his will, as if that held any power over me anymore. "You already cut Liam out of your hearts," I replied in my only response. "There's nothing else you can take from us that matters." In May, James asked me to dinner. Just me, not Liam, for the first time. He had arranged for his sister to watch Liam at our apartment so we could have an evening alone. "I've wanted to ask you out for years," he admitted over dinner, but the timing never seemed right. By summer, we were dating seriously. James was everything my family couldn't comprehend, genuinely supportive, interested in both my aspirations and Liam's development. He didn't measure my worth by conventional milestones or academic pedigrees. He saw me clearly, not as a collection of perceived failures, but as a whole person. When my parents discovered our relationship through social media, where I occasionally posted photos of our outings, they attempted reconciliation, suddenly interested in meeting this man who had changed me. I recognized their pattern instantly. They wanted to claim connection to our happiness without acknowledging how they'd contributed to our pain. I declined their invitation with a simple email. "Liam and I are building a life with people who valued us even when we had nothing to offer but ourselves. You had 8 years to be part of that life and consistently chose not to be. That choice stands." The following Christmas, we hosted our own gathering. Our apartment, now a larger 2-bedroom we could afford with my improved salary, filled with people who genuinely cared about us. James and his family, co-workers who had become friends, parents of Liam's classmates. As I watched Liam excitedly showing his friends his telescope by the window, his face illuminated with joy in a home surrounded by people who cherished him, I knew I'd made the only possible decision. The revenge wasn't in the dramatic exit or the returned gifts or the ignored calls. It wasn't even in the social media posts that exposed their neglect. It was in this, creating a life so rich with authentic connection that my biological family's absence was no longer a wound, but merely a faded mark. My parents, sister, and brother lost the privilege of watching Liam grow into the remarkable person he was becoming. They lost the joy of his discoveries, his questions that revealed how deeply he thought about the world, the warmth of his compassion. Their loss entirely, not ours. The final piece fell into place when James proposed the following spring, not just to me, but to Liam as well, kneeling with 2 boxes, an engagement ring for me and a family medallion for Liam. "I want us to be a family," he he told Liam seriously. Not to replace your birth father, but to be someone in your life who will always show up for you, who will never let you down, who will love you unconditionally. Liam's expression as he accepted the medallion, serious, joyful, secure, was worth every painful holiday, every difficult conversation, every sleepless night spent questioning my decisions. We married in summer, a small ceremony in the bookstore's garden courtyard where James and I had worked together for years. His family, now our family, surrounded us with authentic acceptance. Liam stood beside us as our best man, his pride evident in every carefully executed responsibility. 2 weeks after the wedding, I received a letter from Daniel, the only member of my family who had eventually sent a genuine apology, acknowledging his role in enabling the family's treatment of Liam. He wrote that our parents had been devastated by the wedding photos he'd seen online when mutual cousins who still followed my social media had shared them with him, finally understanding what they'd lost. "They talk about Liam now," he wrote. "They have his school picture on their mantle. Mom keeps saying she wishes she could tell him she's sorry." I showed the letter to James, who squeezed my hand in support but remained silent, letting me make my own decision without influence. I wrote back to Daniel with a single paragraph. "I'm glad they've reflected on their actions, but Liam isn't a prop they can pick up when it's convenient and discard when it's not. He's a child who deserves consistency and unconditional love. When they're ready to offer that, with actions, not just convenient regrets, we can discuss what a relationship might look like. Until then, we're complete with the family we've chosen." 3 years after we walked out of my parents' house, Liam gave me a Christmas gift, a new handcrafted ornament, a cardinal like the one from my grandmother's collection, but this one intact, hanging from a ribbon attached to a framed family photo of the 3 of us, Liam, James, and me. "I saved this piece from that Christmas," he told me as I unwrapped it, my vision blurring. "I knew someday I'd find the right way to make it whole again." That ornament hangs on our tree now, among decorations made by James's nieces and nephews, beside handcrafted treasures from neighbors and friends who have become our chosen family. There are no empty spaces where my biological family should be. We have filled our lives with people who understand how to love unconditionally. That, I believe, is the truest revenge, not just surviving without those who diminished you, but thriving in their absence, building something beautiful and authentic from the wreckage they created. My son will grow up knowing his worth isn't determined by people who couldn't see his light. He will understand that family is defined by actions, not blood, and that sometimes the most courageous thing you can do is walk away from those who cannot love you properly to find those who can and will. As for my parents, they attempted reconnection several times over the years, but I maintained clear boundaries. We eventually permitted occasional supervised visits after Liam turned 11, but only after consulting with Liam and respecting his comfort level. They never regained the privilege of being significant figures in his life. Patricia's perfect marriage ended in divorce when Liam was 12, and tellingly, she suddenly wanted to reconnect afterward. She reached out through Daniel, asking to meet for coffee, but I insisted any relationship would need to begin with a genuine apology to Liam first. Daniel did make sincere amends over time, and we now have a cautious but civil relationship where he visits occasionally and has earned a small place in Liam's life through consistent, respectful behavior. James legally adopted Liam on his 10th birthday, with Liam's enthusiastic consent. The adoption was finalized 3 months later, giving Liam the security of 2 legal parents and cementing our family bond in ways my biological family never managed. As for Liam's biological father, he signed away his parental rights without hesitation when contacted by our lawyer, having never once reached out during the entire decade of his son's life. Liam chose to hyphenate his last name, honoring both his birth identity and his new family connection. Before you go, here's a quick bonus for sticking around. If you love learning and growing like I do, you need to try audiobooks. I've got an exclusive deal with Audible. Your first month is completely free. That's access to over 500,000 titles. 0 cost to you. All the details are waiting in the description. Don't miss this one.